There's something on the screen.
There we go. Go for it. Can you start over?
Start over. Are you serious?
Just say your name.
Okay. I'm Dima Strapchev. There's nothing at the camera. I'm a graphic designer with about 10 years experience, specialized in the corporate identity. And I wanted to bring up the example with the Keystone because, like, I guess you heard about Keystone for some time already. And I wanted to show the first version of the pitch deck, which we did back in maybe April last year. And then I will show you where we got in 5 months or 6 months in terms of messaging and in terms of like visual and the feel and everything. So I will just try to flip through. So do you know anything about Keystone or about the, no?
Nothing.
Great. So here you go. You're an investor and we want to catch your attention and want to get your money, want you to invest in this project, into this project and make you believe that it works. So that's the start of it. That it's a premium information management for demanding professionals. Do you know what does it mean?
Facebook for professionals.
Facebook for professionals?
Just right. Wikipedia for professionals. That's how it sounds like information management.
Yeah, could be.
Or like Wikipedia without the bullshit.
It's like a personal organizer for everything you have to do.
Yeah, also. It's also in this definition. So then we're trying to explain what it is. So that's that's a very very complicated platform, which takes all of your things which you have online, like emails and calendars and to-dos and notes and email and whatever messages, and tries to bring it to one system. And that's the way how it works. It takes all the chaos and systemizes it and brings it to the one single interface. This is the simple interface. Well, yeah. And this is how it works. More of interface. Well, that's just a competition map of different features from different products, and Iris has all of it. That's how it will. That's how it's planned to be disseminated over the market. That's just a sales funnel, and that's big, revenue numbers. And then who is the team? Which is the team? And I will show you now I will show you now the final result, which we come up with after after 5 or 6 months. So that's the title slide. And
so this is the presentation for the investors.
This is the same presentation. It just evolved in 6 months.
But it's still for the...
Yeah, this is also the pitch deck. That's the same slides, just you take all the important messages out of all these complex slides and put them in some kind of condensed form. That's the interface. We don't try to show a specific interface and how complex it is. We just say that's smart interface, and we have a concept for it, but we're still developing it. And that's the way the system works. And just simple explanation why it should be interesting. I mean, to understand completely how, like, what's the difference in this pitch decks. You'll have probably to really go through it and see if you read the first version, if you'll get anything, and try then to compare it and read the second version. And I just wanted to bring up some, like the same slides, and show how they evolved through the process. So that's something we call the laser slide, which shows the kind of how the system works actually. That it takes all the separate pieces of the information, and through some special aggregation and standardization brings it to the one interface. And this was the second version of the same slide. The third version, fourth, fifth. This is the final one. And here you could see that the idea behind the slide is still the same. It's still like bringing the things together. But the look of it changed like 6 or 7 times.
What did you decide to do with the black background?
Yeah, that came out of the general brand positioning, because we wanted to look more premium product than like a mass market.
Okay.
So the black came out as the sort of idea of trying to communicate it's more premium. And here I wanted to show that that the idea from the beginning it didn't change, but we really did change a lot the look of it. The same with presentation of the core services. The idea of the email, calendar, contacts, documents at the bottom. It was there. We were just playing different ways, trying different ways to show it. And this crazy interface showing how you could actually, showing really cool feature that you can highlight some important key data in an email and create create an event from it, became much more like abstract. Again, from like concept of the user interface, trying to show everything, how it will look exactly, we came to more abstract ideas. I mean, it probably doesn't make much sense now, but I will try to explain how the process went, and maybe I hope that it will make more sense after it. And I would like to do it in more interactive form. So if you have any questions questions about any slides or anything I say, please ask me. I will try to explain or maybe give an example. And I wanted to go through a few topics. It's branding, importance of the concept or idea, the way how corporate identities work, and just generally on creativity. And then we could end with a little workshop on naming. And I must say that I'm not really a brand specialist, but because I'm really working in corporate identities, I have to deal with the brand a lot. And often, like when let's say when a client or when an owner business, when they don't have a really clear idea of what their brand stands for or what their positioning or who their target audience, I feel like I have to know a little bit about it to be able to guide them through the process, so they do the homework and then they come back and can create actually a brief and know what to do. So that's why, and also for the last 3 years, I was working in a couple branding agencies, and I learned a lot of things from there. So I'm kind of stealing ideas from there and trying to give you some nuggets, but you have to really make notes and then explore these topics yourselves, and maybe listen to some actual brand consultants and brand professionals on how they explain these things. I think first thing I learned about brand, or how the brand works, is that it's not what you say. Like it's whatever brand or company you create, you can say 100,000 times that you're great, that you are the best company in the world, that you like. It's the brand is not that. It's what you're trying to say, but it's not that. The brand is what they say. Like they say, your customers say. It's what they feel about your company, and it's so abstract that it's more like actually a gut feeling about your company. Like if you ask anybody what they think about, I don't know, Coca-Cola or Nike, they wouldn't be able to say directly what they think the company stands for, but they have some feeling about it. And this feeling, it takes really long time to create this feeling. It's a really complex process, and it works on more some kind of at more a subconscious level. And well, you can influence it. You cannot really directly encode into your customers or people what you stand for, but you can sort of create the feeling of your company by different ways, and one of them is corporate identity. And this feeling, this gut feeling, it takes really long time to form, and that's why it's really important from the very beginning to know what you're doing. It's a long-term game, and you have to really from the very beginning know your target brand image and work to it, and rather than changing it all the time and changing your name or changing your look, you really have to be consistent. Try it's really pays off to spend much more time in the preparation, ideation phase, rather than change it constantly once it's already out there. One of the tools I learned in branding, I call brand archetypes, and this is a great thing in the beginning. When you probably have a feeling about what your company stands for, what kind of feeling you want to communicate, but you're not sure yet how to explain it. And it's a system of 12 archetypes. It's based on the work of Carl Jung. He was using the system to he created the system to describe any psychological type of personality, and then marketing gurus took this methodology and adapted it to branding and marketing. So we have here 12 different archetypes, and for example, every brand could be described with any of these archetypes. And let's say, like everyman could be Skoda car or Volkswagen, like a product which is kind of for everyone. Then, like if we think about cars, then the ruler would be Mercedes. The outlaw, I don't know, probably some Subaru, yeah. Innocent, probably some electric cars or some kind of ecological cars. And so you could use it as some sort of like orientation within within other brands. And it gets interesting when you look at your competition. And for example, if we take some products from like cleaning products, most of them would try to become a caregiver or everyman, because they kind of try to care and try to make everything clean and also get in your shoes and know how it's hard to do like the cleaning, and and they can help you. So most of the cleaning products are in these categories. But it gets really interesting once you see that some of them are not. Like Persil and Ariel, and they deliberately decided not to be in those categories to differentiate themselves, to kind of stand out from the crowd.
Who puts them in those categories? Is it the customers or the management of the company?
Management, they try to do it themselves. So that's like it's an intentional decision.
But could it be like that the customers see, for example, Ariel being everyman and let's say Dallas being hero?
Yeah, absolutely. It's when so there is intention to be like a hero,
Yeah.
right? And this intention drives all your communication, like the way your advertisement sounds, the way your messages are formed, the way you look. But in the end, it's all up to the customer to decide where do you belong. So there's always like intention versus the reality. And this is just examples of the way Ariel communicates. And it's kind of like about saving the planet, turn to 30, become a hero. And Persil about the creativity and exploring. So don't be scared of like getting dirty. And another thing in branding is the structure of your brand. So for example, if you want to have a company and create more than one product.
Pins are in that little container next to the computer monitor.
Yeah, thanks. And for example, house of brands would be like Apple as an example. With having Apple MacBooks, iPhones, I don't know, iPads, and all other things. It's all like Apple something, Apple something, Apple something. And then branded house would be more like a company like Unilever with actually I'm not 100% sure what's inside of Unilever, but they have like
Eggs.
yeah, yeah, like toothpaste. They have like washing powder. They have like
Something from food industry.
yeah, like some cookies, whatever. It's like, let's say I would just call the categories like food and detergent. So the difference between these two is that in the house of brands, you work on, you're really focused on one brand, like your main brand, like Apple, and you really try to communicate all the time what it stands for, and it gives its benefits. For example, if your main brand is really strong, then you don't really need to invest in the brands of individual products. Whereas with the branded house, it really gives you a lot of more freedom within promoting like individual products. So for example, you could promote the toothpaste for one target audience and the food for another target audience and detergents for third. And they don't have to share really the same brand attributes. So that, for example, if Apple would be, I don't know, like a archetype of creator, so then all the communication about all the products should be aligned with this creator idea. If we say Unilever, if communicates Colgate with the archetype of a hero, it can communicate easily detergent with the archetype of a caregiver, and food with the archetype of innocent because they're all like separate and they're not dependent so much on each other. But it has its own like cons because then you need to spend much more effort to promote individual brands. Whereas here, if they launch I don't know, iPan, it's gonna be immediately cool because they know it's like Apple.
And what type do you think is Google?
What is good?
What Google? What type of this do? Is it House of Brands or?
Well, they were Google everything, but now they're trying to actually transfer. So they were a branded house, right? It was like Google. It's Google Maps and Google Calendar and Google Docs and whatever. But now they're trying to make a big brand which covers it all, which is called Alphabet. Yeah. And Google is just part of it. So then Alphabet is the house of brands. That's.
Okay. I'm sorry, did you mislabel these maybe then, on the board, what you wrote?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So this one is actually house of brands, and that one is branded house.
Okay.
Because that's brands in the house, Colgate detergents and food. Right? Yes. House of brands. No, wait.
Yeah.
It made more sense, like.
It's like
Yeah,
linguistically.
many brands. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're also like this is not really clear categories, so they're also hybrids. So this is more like to differentiate between the two big categories. There are also like Coke, right? Coca-Cola, which have a drink Coca-Cola, but then they have a bunch of other drinks also. So it's kind of like a house of brands, but it's also a branded house because their main brand is Coca-Cola and their drink is Coca-Cola.
So I guess what's most important is not what you call them, is that they are two different strategies
Yeah.
that you have to be cognizant of. And you guys in some of the companies that you shared, that you interviewed yesterday over the weekend, you could probably imagine that they have different strategies for each one of those. Some of those that are kind of these serial entrepreneurs that collect companies, start companies, that it would be similar to the Unilever model, where they just have these different companies that operate completely independently with their own messaging. And then some of you have companies that have created complementary products or services that are within, that is more similar to the Apple, that might have the same general branding and messaging. And we actually, just to go back to our own experience with Keystone, we started off by leaning on Keystone. And by the time Dima was done with us, Keystone is really kind of not an afterthought, but it's really secondary, and Iris, because really it's a one product company, and that product, whether it takes off or not, is the story.
Yeah, so I guess it's important to decide in the beginning, like if you, for example, with Keystone, the first product is Iris, right? So maybe then after Iris is launched, Keystone would want to work on another product, but they want Keystone become famous through success of Iris. So then the second product, right, would be famous just because the Keystone is famous. But then it gives in the beginning it creates kind of double work a little bit because you need to differentiate. So what's the company, what's the product? And you have to be really clear when you communicate it. And many times I've seen the companies would start using the name of their product as the name of a company in the beginning, and then differentiate, which is maybe in the beginning easier to do, and then later maybe it's harder to introduce a new brand. But it's again about your personal preference. If you're really sure that you're going to launch second or third product after, or if you want to do some parallel, then you would want to create some kind of
Branded house.
House of your brands, actually. House for your brands. It's like, I'd say, I'll call it differently. This is house for brands? No. Okay, it's branded house.
Yes.
So this one is example of the house of brands. Because like Keystone here serves as the house and then it contains other brands like Iris and whatever next will be there.
So after, again, just going back to this as an example, after we started spending time, probably within the first 3 months, we stopped spending energy on Keystone and we spent almost, correct me if I'm wrong, we spent almost all of our energy on Iris.
Yeah, I'll show it in
I'm sorry, let me make one more statement
Yeah.
too, but just in terms of context. I don't know if you're listening to this and thinking, wow, I just took a marketing class, if you were in the business program and took a marketing class. But this is, yes, a marketing topic, but if you don't, just from my own personal experiences, if you don't stop at this, at the beginning, and tactically, this is very strategic, but if you tactically don't put on your calendar to sit down either with a guy like Dima or do it yourself, if you don't sit and think about this consciously, you'll pay for it later. And you won't even know how much you're paying for it later. But the things you're going to pay for are, how does the marketplace, this is where, I hope you're doing this in your mind, you're thinking about your project, or even if it's not in your project, but who is the customer? What is that market and what are they thinking? Who am I addressing? And then I have to go back to the product, my solution. And all of this is messaging of that solution so that my customer, when they see it, like, I don't know if you had that sense, sorry I'm stealing some of your time here, but when you saw that first slide, the slide deck on Iris, I don't know about you, but I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about? I mean, I didn't say that because I helped create it. So I'm thinking, this is perfect, right? But when we give it to people who are honest, that's exactly what they said back to us. Sometimes they used a bad word, but they certainly were, maybe they're more polite, but they're like, I don't know what, we showed it to Nancy the first time. She's like, woo, that's a lot of information. Now, but I'm not, and Nancy's pretty smart, right? She can figure out what we're trying to say, but she's also pretty smart in that she didn't allow herself to force herself over the fence to figure out what we were trying to say, and she kept herself back and said, nope, they're not going to get it. Nobody's giving you money. That seems like a great idea, but it ain't represented here in the slides. And so you have to, this is where you have to be, this is why the lean startup model is so valuable in the lean canvas, because it's forcing you to define who is that customer. And it's not everyone on the planet, it's a particular customer. Now you might have 1, 2, or 3 answers here as you expand who your target market opportunity is, but you start with somebody. And then this is where this messaging has to be very clear that we can see what that connection is. So I just wanted to say that because I think sometimes when we see this big archetype and woo, you're up in kumbaya land, but it actually is critical that you do this at the very beginning, because if you don't have a good clean message earlier that fits what the product or solution is that you're selling, then, and you won't even know it, but there'll be tons of friction here between your customer and your solution. They won't get it. And you'll be pushing them because, what do you mean you don't get it? Iris is the best product in the world. You can't, believe me, after and you're going to demo this because hopefully by the end of the class I might have something you can actually play with. But if you don't just naturally say, I get it, I'm dead. Right? So I can't go to each one of you. This is a mass market consumer product. I can't come to you, Pavel, and spend a half an hour convincing you that Iris is the greatest thing in the world. In fact, this is a completely no-touch marketing distribution strategy. I just got to drop it into the marketplace, and it's got to be like Ebola. You just has to like get viral because y'all. I mean, that's kind of not a good example, but it's just got to take over, right? And so we found that, and we're very practical, pragmatic people. So when we found that we started to spend the time, and it was a couple months, right, before we really kind of it clicked in our heads. We were like, oh, wait, we have to stop and do this. We're not creating another slide deck of something that pushing onto our potential customers or the people who could invest in us what it means.
Yeah.
But it just naturally comes from, you just see the slide deck and you go, oh, I get it, or you don't. But there it is.
Yeah, I guess I had to really start thinking more specifically. This all like exercises that let you think more specifically about the audience and who we're talking to. And you know, this branding things, they're important, but I'm not a specialist in this. But you gotta go through it, and you gotta do your homework, and you know, read about these things, and try to have like at least a slight idea of how to approach your project. But I think the main thing in every creative project, or maybe everything, I think, it's a concept and an idea. And I really like this quote from the Edwards Deming. Jeff just gave me a tip last week. It's a great quote. It's not enough to do your best. You must know what to do and then do your best. It's like, it's not enough just to do things. You really, I mean, unless you do art. But you really have to have an idea first. And this relates to corporate identity, because corporate identity is just, you know, it's just the top of the iceberg. It's just what we can see, or actually people don't even give a damn about corporate identity. They just notice color, they notice shape, they notice some sounds, but they have no idea, what's under it. They can feel it by the way the corporate identity works. And to design the corporate identity, you have to have really good idea of what's there under. What's the big idea? And you know, with the earlier example of the laser slide, with just the slide on the pitch deck, the way the product, the iris works, it was really hard in the beginning. I spent a lot of time just trying to understand how it works until I could visualize it. And after we got the idea of how it works, what was changing just the look and the style of, you know, the idea stayed the same. And I think sometimes in some projects, like I meet with the client and they would say, okay, we just need, we need corporate identity. We can start with the logo. We need just the logo, and we need it quick because, well, I have a meeting in 2 weeks and I have to have business cards, and there has to be a logo on the business card. So it has to be something simple, nothing complicated. Usually these are like the scariest projects, because it's just like you're lucky if you show one idea and it will be okay. But if you show like one idea, and usually it's like, yeah, it's cool, and but maybe I'm not sure about that. Maybe we can add some things, and I want to add there also this, and I want to, so people think that we are premium, or we also have this human approach to our work, and that also we're creative, and that we are this and we are that, and you start to gather this all ideas which you want to communicate with the logo, and you kind of start to have a sense of how huge this iceberg is underwater, but you still have no idea how it should look like above. And I think the idea in this is king. Like you have to, like execution is important. Like if your product looks like crap and you have a great idea, it's not gonna succeed. But I think if you don't have a really good idea and you jump into the execution of your, say, identity, logo, naming, branding, cards, website, and everything, you could do it really quick. You could really get your website running. but it will be really hard then to change it once you invested a lot of time in doing it. And I think ideas is really easy to change because it's just an idea. You can generate 100 ideas. You wouldn't like any of these ideas, so you can generate another 100. You could always change an idea. You could test an idea, and then once you're happy, more or less, you could execute it. And another thing with the ideas is that we tend to be really very subjective about it. Like the same example with the logo. You bring a logo to a client and they don't like it. They're like, well, I just don't like it. And you're like, why? I don't know. Well, I just don't like it. I just don't like red color. Or, I don't know, I just don't like black font. Or, I just don't like Helvetica or something. And this conversation is not gonna take you anywhere. Well, because your customer not necessarily shares the same preferences as you do, and I think it's about like this understanding that there is a bigger idea. It's about shifting the conversation towards towards more objective criticism and thinking, what are we trying to achieve with this? What are we trying to communicate with this? What do we want people to feel when they look at this logo? What we want to communicate with this slide? No, we don't. We want to say our product is simple to use. So that's the message behind the slide. That's what we want to. That's what is important to communicate visually. So then the conversation shifts to, does it communicate what we want? Do we, like, if this is relevant to our target audience, or even is it technically possible, and kind of more objective opinions rather than I like and I don't like. And I think today there's so much tools and technology. There's so much crowdsourcing, and you could go online now and hire 1,000 designers that will design you a logo for $5. They will design you like 1,000 ideas, but what you will get just the top of the iceberg. They would never be able to spend a lot of time understanding what your real problem is, or there is not enough time to really spend on understanding all your strategy and how do you see your company in the future and how it will evolve. So I think in this way, idea is more important than execution, but it doesn't mean that idea is just enough. There should be both there. It should be done. Idea should be of good quality, and execution should be of good quality to get the right result. And also often when I start the corporate identity projects, I really try to ask, like, company owner or company founder, why your target audience, why the people who you target with, yes, why they would want you, why they, for example, somebody's opening a cafe, right, or some kind of third way coffee, and why they would want to go to your coffee place. What's your zag? That's a great book. I really recommend reading it. It's very short. It has big letters. It's like it reads in an hour and a half max. And it's exactly about that. Basically, if you just want to open something like, let's say, cafe, which is the same like every other cafe, the only way you're gonna get successful is probably by, probably by making your price lower than your competitors, but it's like a trap because you're not going to be able to do it, sustain it for a long time. And it's about like finding the different way of doing things and trying to really think hard why your customer would want to come to your cafe exactly. And another question is like, who is it for, your product or your brand? Why would they care about you at all? Because you know, once we try to create some kind of brand, it's like our child, right? And like those entrepreneurs who all their life is invested in one company. It's their child, and they feel very defensive about it. But it doesn't mean that other people will feel the same. They might not care about you at all, about your company. So what will make them care about it? And I think these questions are really, it's kind of good to address them in the very beginning, and usually they drive clients mad. Like I had my brief flying on me as a piece of paper from one client, and from the other end of the room. But I think this is very valuable, because actually the business owners start to think of these questions and start to try to formulate it somehow for themselves. Maybe actually helps them to get a better idea of what the company is about. And you know, sometimes actually, maybe here also, sometimes you don't need, like, when the clients come and they ask for a logo, sometimes they don't need a logo. And I will come to this later. So this idea of like having clear this task about that I want the final result, I want the logo for the business card because I want to get to the meeting, it kind of could be misleading because it's just talking about the surface. And there is another cool thing which could help you to create your positioning. It's the oneness statement. I really recommend looking it up. And it's creating a statement which answers the 6 main questions about your company. So what do you do and you mean the category of your, let's say, products, I don't know, cars, smartphones, how you do it, like what's your ZAC, how are you different from your all competitors, who are you doing for, where it's located, why people would want it, and what's the trend now, or what's the situation in the market currently, and maybe I would guess which company is that, which brand is that. Yeah. And I think it's a statement. It's like a DNA of a company. It tells what do you do, like it's motorcycles. It tells how they're different. They're like big and loud. Who are you doing for? The macho guys. Where most of the United States. Why are you doing it? Because people want to join a tribe of people. Like people want to unite in the communities. And the current situation in the world is that it's decreasing personal freedom. So they really try to, in their communication, you would see in their advertisement, they really try to tap into this personal freedom and show our people kind of feeling free and being free. So that's another really cool tool to have before you start the corporate identity design project. And I'll try now to explain how the top of the iceberg works. And by the name corporate identity, you could feel that the function of it is to identify, and it's about identifying your brand or your company within the vast sea of other brands. And they would the identity isn't just about what they see. They would see the colors and logos and shapes, and maybe they also not just see but maybe hear the sounds. But brand is what they feel, and you cannot really. I think it's important to differentiate between these two things. That imagine, you could really imagine it with a real person. The identity is the way you look and the way you talk and the way you behave and your body language, whereas the brand is the It's basically a feel about you which other people have. I think that's probably the good way to imagine it, and then it might help to approach it. And corporate identity is actually not just a logo, and it doesn't have to be a logo. It's a system of elements, and there could be really a lot of elements, and you might need just few of them to start with. But I will name, say, most basic ones or most usual ones. A part of corporate identity is your name, and could be a slogan, tagline, doesn't have to be. It's a logo, and it could be, the logo could be a signature, the logo could be a picture, the logo could be just a text, the logo could be icon and word mark. So for example, in this example, it's like the most typical example. This is an icon or a symbol, and this is a word mark. And I would recommend, if you would be creating a logo, if you would decide to create a logo for your company, so I would recommend starting with this formula, with this structure, because it really allows you to do many things with it. You can use the symbol separately. You can use the word mark under the logo. You could shuffle them around how you want. So it becomes just much more adaptable. You could use the symbol just as an icon for your application, or it could be placed on the small screens as well to be visible. Then another part of the corporate identity is typography. Is what fonts are you using, how are you using it. Did you notice that I'm not using big letters at all here in this presentation? So that could be a decision about your typography, or will it be just black type on the white, or it will be a lot of text, or will it be small text. And it's about colors. Wow, it should be red. It could be one color, it could be, let's say, no color, it could be like black and white, but it's still black and white. It could be many colors, it could be rainbow, it could be no specific color actually. It could be color palette, it could be like a system of 10 colors you use all the time. It's a visual language. Visual language is a really cool thing because it's so implicit